Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bayou Bets. It is Thursday. It is November the 30th. Final show of November 2023. Here we go. I'm here with Thomas Casale. I'm Jim Derry. And before we get to it, we will remind you that Caesars Sportsbook is official odds partner of bet.NOLA.com. All of our odds, all of our numbers today come from Caesars, and we thank them for their partnership here at bet.NOLA.com. We also ask you to subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. You can find everything we do there, and you can find all the great shorts that Henderson's been putting up for us as of late, doing a really good job. You won't miss any of it if you subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. What's going on, Thomas?
Not too much, Jim. Where's the time go? I mean, it's the last full Saturday of college football. The NFL's winding down. It's hard to believe we're here already.
It really is. It's insane how fast it goes by. I say this every year, and the older I get, the more and more it's true. But you go to sleep in August, you wake up, it's January, and I mean, it feels like I'm coming out of the sleep. I mean, we're in the Christmas. I got my little Christmas cup here that my wife gave me, and the Christmas decorations are up. Everything, we're ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, you can't see, but in the room I'm in, I'm cramped in the corner because I got all the kids' Christmas presents here. So I mean,
don't let them in there. Don't let them in there.
No. Well, my oldest son, I know he doesn't still believe, but we're playing a game of chicken. He won't tell me, and I won't tell him. I know, and so basically, it's costing me a couple $1,000 just pretend he still believes in Santa Claus.
Well, then you better win this weekend. You better win this weekend. All right, our topics of the day are just what you see on the screen. We don't know what the hell to expect with the Saints. Well, maybe one of us does. One of us actually has the Saints in his big bucks picks. We'll see who that is. Maybe it's the same guy who's the turkey of the week. I don't know. We're going to have to see that later on. We're going to be talking about Tulane and SMU in the American Athletic Conference Championship game. That is at 3 p.m. It's at Yulman Stadium. It's actually the same time as the SEC Championship. So some of you may have to pick and choose what you want to watch, but we'll talk about that and make our predictions in that game as well. And then we're going to talk about all the other conference title games, or at least the ones that are important to us, and the college football playoff. How will the conference title affect the college football playoffs? I didn't have room in there, but we are also going to talk about the Heisman Trophy. It's down to Bo Nix or Jayden Daniels. I think one of them has an advantage. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And then also, obviously, we'll bring in Gabe Henderson and Spencer the Guru in a little while, and our big bucks along with the turkey of the week. I can't wait for that, not to give anything away. Okay, let's get right into it. And the New Orleans Saints, big game this week. They have lost 2 in a row. Thomas, it's the third time this season already that they've lost 2 in a row. The last 2 times they lost 2 in a row, they came back with a victory. Can they do it against Detroit, who is one of the better teams in the league? You see, second rank in offense and 10th in total defense.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. You know, we all had the Lions in a tease last Thanksgiving for Thanksgiving Day, and we see how that played out. But the reason I took the Lions last week was because 2 weeks ago against the Bears, they didn't get off the bus, and they were able to rally in the fourth quarter. And then last week, they kind of didn't get off the bus. They were dominated early on and could never catch up. It's an interesting trend. You know, the Lions, if you're a team like the Lions, you want to be playing your best going into December, and they're not doing that right now. I think it's going to be an interesting game. We'll see which Lions team shows up. We'll see which Saints team shows up. I know some people got these in their big bucks. God bless you. I don't know how to call this one.
Well, I'll tell you this, the Lions are basically doing the opposite of what they did last year. Last year, they had a horrible start, made this furious charge, and almost made the playoffs. Just last week of the year, just couldn't quite get the last push through. And then this year, they started off hot as heck, and they've kind of been stinking as of late. And I mean, they had to get every bit of help they could get lucky there in the end to come back and beat the Bears 2 weeks ago. And last week, not being able to beat the Packers at home on Thanksgiving, you're supposed to win those games. I mean, so Saints and Lions are, I know people don't believe this because they watch the Saints every week and they think the Saints just stink and they're not playing up to their potential. Well, I bet in Detroit, they're saying similar things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the thing that alarms me the most about the Thanksgiving Day game is the Lions pride themselves on being physical and bullying their opponents. They did that to Green Bay in the first matchup, but they weren't able to do that. They were the ones that kind of got moved around in that game. And I'm sure they're going to want to come out. They're going to want to establish the line of scrimmage against the Saints. And I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed in the Saints defense a little bit against the Falcons. I thought that was the unit that was going to shine. And you're kind of still, what are your thoughts on this, Jim? They were so good early in the year. What's the difference here?
Well, and one thing you see is you look at the Saints' total defensive ranking, and it's gone from 4th to 5th to 7th to 9th and now 12th. It keeps going down and down. And frankly, they just I don't know what the heck's going on, but along the front line, they're not getting the pressure they were getting earlier in the season. Carl Granderson is not making the same kind of impact that he was. Cam Jordan has basically disappeared. I don't know if it's because he's 37 years old or whatever it is, but he's just not playing the same. And then obviously you lose Marshawn Lattimore in the defensive backfield, and that makes a big difference. So a lot of things really. But the biggest thing, I think, what I've seen the past couple of weeks, this team just doesn't play with heart. They haven't been. It's like they don't have any chemistry, and that's a reflection upon the head coach, in my opinion. And so, when you don't play with heart, you got to figure it out. You're either going to get it together and somebody's going to fire up the troops and step up in that locker room and pump them up, or you're just going to disappear and fall into the abyss. And I think we're going to find out a lot about this team this weekend.
No, it's a good point. And I was watching a college basketball game last night, Villanova and St. Joseph's. They're both in the Philly area. And the announcers said, St. Joseph's wants this game more. And sometimes that's just what announcers say. But it was right. Like, you could see it. They were diving for balls. They had more energy. And when I watched that Saints game, that's what I thought. I thought,
100%.
The Falcons are playing with a lot more energy than the Saints. So I think your observation is right. And yeah, see, I know you and I are on the same page with something. People don't want to hear this, Jim, but I think Derek Carr, and I know you do too, is going to be the starting quarterback next season.
There's no question.
And I think if there's changes it's going to be made to either the head coach or the coaching staff. But I think Derek Carr is going to be the quarterback. And, I think fans going to have to start getting behind that, because same thing with it. Listen, I know the Giants want Caleb Williams. Giants paying Daniel Jones a whole heck of a lot of money next year. I don't know if there's going to be another quarterback in New York. Sometimes you just have to go with what you got.
It's not going to be Danny DeVito, though, is it? I know his name's not really Danny.
No. We'll get into that when the Saints play the Giants. I'm up here in New York, people. It's awful. It's awful what they're doing up here.
Oh, DeVito and Boyle. If you had that on your card, or who would be the two New York quarterbacks in Week 12 and Week 13, then you win. You win a lot of money. DeVito and Boyle. Yeah, I had that one. I'm going to raise my hand. I had that one. And I don't think so. But look, the Saints, they need to figure it out, and they need to figure it out quickly. Again, I'm not going to get too far into my prediction, because I'm going to explain what I think is going to happen in my big bucks, because there's your spoiler alert. It is in my big bucks picks. And I have a big time take on this. And again, it goes one way or the other. We find out a lot about the Saints team. The Lions, they have more room to spare. Okay. I think they're in a division to where I don't think we saw Minnesota's not any good last week. Josh Dobbs was finally exposed for what he is, and that's a fraud. I mean, I like the guy. He seems like a nice kid, but he's not an NFL quarterback. And I don't know what people thought they were going to get, but the Saints just can't play against running quarterbacks. Josh Dobbs can move around as well as almost anyone. And, as bad as Desmond Ridder is, he can move around a little bit too. So we'll see. I think Jared Goff is a statue back there.
And one thing, Jim, I know a lot of people in New Orleans aren't happy with the quarterback play. Goff hasn't played great the last two games.
Hasn't played well at all.
Yeah. And so I think this game is going to be close in the fourth quarter. I think one of the quarterbacks is going to make a mistake. It could be the difference in the game, but I do think this is going to be a tight game throughout.
Saints fans are saying, oh, God, no. If it comes down to a quarterback making a mistake, it's going to be Derek Carr. You know how they think around here. I mean, it's automatic negativity. We're going to get back to the Saints in a little while. And we're also, before we move on, I do want to talk about Thursday Night Football real quick. We have so much to talk about. We normally spend 12, 14, 15 minutes talking about the Saints. We just can't today. We got too much going on as we go along. Again, college football playoffs coming up, conference championship games. But I do want to talk about Thomas's Dallas Cowboys tonight against the Seattle Seahawks. Finally, a pretty decent game on a Thursday night. Looking forward to this. This line is all the way up to 9.5 now. Moved to 9.5 a couple hours ago. It was 8.5 was 9 for a couple days, and now just within the past couple hours moved to 9.5. I got to be honest. I like the Seahawks here, and I'm gonna tell you why. I think if there ever was a flat spot for Dallas, I think everybody and their grandma is going to be betting on Dallas tonight. That's why the spread keeps doing this. But I also think the Seahawks, when they absolutely have to, they can show up, and I think they need to tonight. Also, Thomas, and I think you'll attest to this, Dallas, this is a really bad spot. They're playing Philly next week. That's the game that matters to them more than anything.
Yeah, when you mentioned this in the pre-production meeting, I agreed with you. Like as a Dallas fan, I think this is going to be a tough game. I'll say this: I think the spread should be 7, not 9.5.
I agree.
I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
or at least 7.5.
Yeah, somewhere's around a touchdown, but not. So you're getting value if you're betting a number. Then you're going to bet the Seahawks tonight because there's no value with Dallas. I mean, they got to be up 17 late for you to be in a comfortable position. I just don't see the game being a blowout. And I think, Jim, we were talking about this earlier, recency bias comes in a lot with betting. What's the last thing we saw with the Cowboys? They were in the Salvation Army thing. They were eating turkey on the sidelines. Well, listen, Washington's a corpse, and the game was still close in the second half, to be completely honest.
Every team they played at home this year is a corpse.
Yeah. But I mean, listen, there was I remember saying to my sons when we were watching it, I'm like, geez, this game's not over yet. Like Dallas let them hang around. Then the wheels came off at the end and made the score look a little worse than it was. But Seattle, last time we saw, listen, what happened with Seattle, right? They played San Fran. The Niners flexed their muscles. We saw that with Jacksonville too, though, Jim. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like not everybody's in San Fran's class, but I think they match up better with the Cowboys.
I agree. And again, I think we talk about betting and it's all about spots. And sometimes you have to be contrarian. You're not just contrarian just to be contrarian, but you find the right spots. And I think this is the right spots to go with Seattle. I got to be honest. It wouldn't shock me. I don't think it's going to happen, but it wouldn't shock me at all if Seattle won this game outright. The last time they lost 2 in a row, they went into Detroit when Detroit was playing well and beat Detroit on the road earlier this season. I think it was week 5 or 6 or somewhere along those lines. And again, I don't think it's going to happen. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Dallas has been rolling so much at home. They're due for a skip up. It could be this one. So,
I agree. I think it's going to be a competitive game.
All right, let's move on to the Tulane Green Wave. Again, we're going to come back to the Saints at the end of the show because I have them in big bucks. We're going to be talking more about the NFL when we get to big bucks at the end of the show and we bring in Gabe and Spencer. But again, we got to talk about Tulane at least for a couple minutes here. This is a key game, not just because it's a championship game, but really for Tulane, Thomas, there's no question. If they win this game, they're going to be in a major bowl. They're going to be, once again, in a New Year's Six bowl. And you see on the bottom of the screen, the Tulane bowl projections. I went through and looked. Every major publication is basically predicting Tulane to win this game because there you see it. Peach Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, Peach Bowl, Peach Bowl. So they may not be predicting some of the other teams to win that we think are going to win. But just at a 3.5 point favorite, the Sharps don't necessarily agree with them, I don't think.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. Listen, I showed up last week with my UTSA shirt. I had the futures going, paid $20 for a T-shirt, all wear once. Maybe I'll take him. Listen, Frank Harris is coming back for his 8th year. I mean, 8 years in college. He's on the Casale college plane. But listen, when I bet that at the beginning of the year, I was hoping they would get to Tulane with a shot. They did, but things have to go right. 4 turnovers in the first half and an interception on a fake punt isn't what I drew up, in that game. So, the Tulane's this is going to be, you mentioned to me earlier, Jim, and I didn't give it a lot of thought until you said something about SMU starting quarterback is out for the game. So
Justin Stone,
and I don't know if they're gonna, with such a good defense, maybe you don't see that high flying off. Maybe they try to shorten the game down a little bit, with running the ball a little bit more, even though it's hard to run on Tulane. And this is going to be an interesting game. I have this game in my big bucks, but you're right. SMU does have a real good defense. So this is going to be, I think this is going to be a lower scoring football game.
Yeah, and I think people are overlooking actually how good SMU's defense is. And really, we asked the question, could SMU's be even better? Well, statistically, they are better. They're ranked ahead of Tulane. And really, Tulane's passing defense hasn't been very good. It helps that SMU's passer, as we talked about, is out, and they have a backup quarterback coming in who is more of a running kind of quarterback, which maybe helps Tulane, but I don't think Tulane's played a whole bunch of running quarterbacks. I really do like this under. I think this is a 17-10 kind of game. The weather in New Orleans is supposed to be better by Saturday. We're supposed to have 2 really bad days of weather coming up. It's supposed to be better by early afternoon on Saturday. But if that timing shifts just a little and that rain lasts in the Saturday afternoon, as it is, it's going to be gloomy and probably windy as well. So that could have effect on the game, and it could have effect on Michael Pratt. I just think we're talking about a game with a score in the teens.
Yeah, and I think it's who runs the ball better. If it's going to be that kind of game. Yeah, listen, again, I have this in my big bucks, so I'll release it later. But the line was interesting. Open Tulane -3, went to 3.5. News came out about Preston Stone, went up to 5.5. Then it's back down to 3.5. Now, I do think that's a little bit of some people trying to middle that number, but I will say that it looks like more money had come on SMU later in these last couple days. That's kind of shifted that number back down to Tulane.
Also, doing some of the research on this game, Tulane won the last meeting last year, but before that, SMU had won 7 in a row in this series. So, I mean, it's not like Tulane has had a lot of recent luck against the Mustangs, because they haven't, and they played a whole lot. This will be the 30th meeting between the two schools. Your pick's going to be in big bucks, but I got to say I've changed my mind since the beginning of the week. I've been basically picking Tulane almost every week, and they finally decided to start playing some ball, and they've covered. Then they covered against UTSA, but I just don't like them here. I not only do I think they're not going to cover, I don't think they're going to win this game. I just don't like this matchup at all. Again, Tulane's offense has not shown me enough. They're going to really need to get the running game going, because as good as Tulane's rush defense is, so is SMU's, and they'll have to show me something that they can run it. But this may be something where if I bet it at all, it would be a live bet, but I might take the under before the game. So.
Yeah, and Jim, I said I grew up an SMU fan when I was a kid. I was going to show up with my Eric Dickerson jersey, but I figured, you do that once, people think it's a little funny. You do it twice, I don't want people booing me off the show. So,
oh yeah, he's just look at this funny guy. By the way, some breaking news: Larry Nance is for the Pelicans is injured. Looks like he's gonna be out 4 to 5 weeks. So the Pelicans keep having setbacks as they go along. Larry Nance, obviously. One of the top bench players for the Pelicans. He will be missed for at least the next 4 to 5 weeks as they go along. But Trey Murphy, as Gabe Henderson points out, is coming back. He will be playing against the San Antonio Spurs. We'll be talking more about the Pels on Monday because they have made it to the play-in tournament quarterfinals. So we'll see how that goes. And we'll be talking about more about the Pels on Monday. All right, let's get to our next segment, which is the one that I think a bunch of us here we've been looking for. It's definitely the one we spent the most time talking about in pre-production. And that is the big conference game, conference title game weekend. Now, you see, we do have Niners Eagles down there at the bottom, because this is where we put our 3 best games of the week, no matter whether it's college, whether it's NFL. And so it's a little bit of everything, but we're going to spend a majority of our time here talking about the college conference title games. Before we get to that, though, let's have a little Heisman chat. I think, Thomas, it's been interesting that the odds have kind of changed, fluctuated a little bit. Bo Nix is clearly the favorite now. I mean, earlier in the week, we were talking about him somewhere around -150, got to -160, and then he just kind of jumped. I think the Sharps jumped on Bo Nix, and they understand. They're hearing through watching all these media reports and listening to the way people are talking. I think it's clear that it's Nix's to lose. We're not saying we would vote for Bo Nix. I think both of us would vote for Jayden Daniels. We both think Jayden Daniels is the better player and has had the better season. I don't think it's close, frankly. But that being said, if I had to bet on it, I would bet on Bo Nix. Gabe was telling me that at one point overnight, it went to -400 at Caesars. It's now back to -220, but still, you got to think Bo Nix is the clear favorite.
Yeah, he's really going to have to stink it up against Washington, I think, not to win it. He's got a high-profile game. They should be able, whoever wins the game, they should be able to move it offensively against Washington's defense. So I think things have to happen for Jayden Daniels. And again, it all, Jayden's done playing, right? If LSU was playing on this weekend, it'd be a completely different story, right? I think Daniels would be the favorite. But it is what it is, and I think Bo Nix, like you said, it's his to lose.
We also talked about a lot of times, unfortunately, I think Heisman voters make up their minds way too early in the game. And they had kind of already, the people who were on Penix, I think a few weeks ago, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, just automatically jumped to Nix and didn't even give Jayden Daniels any consideration. And no one looks at numbers. I mean, to me, you don't even need to see any college football this year. I mean, one plays in the Pac-12, one plays in the SEC. So they're alone. If their numbers were basically identical, I'd probably take the SEC guy in the grand scheme of things, but they're not identical. Daniels' numbers are way better than Bo Nix. I mean, Nix and Daniels have basically the same passing numbers, and Jayden Daniels has rushed for 1,000 more yards than Bo Nix. I don't understand this vote at all.
Yeah, well, and the other thing, you mentioned the voters too. I think if you put all the conferences on an island, all the conferences would gang up against the SEC, right?
That's
true.
True.
People don't like the SEC superiority complex. This is the
true.
best conference in America. That's the way it is. But writers don't like that kind of stuff, and so I think that sometimes hurts when it's a close race like this. Again, if it's Cam Newton, if it's Barry Sanders, and you have an easy one, they're going to vote for him. But when you can split the vote, I think if you're on the fence, you might go Bo Nix. And again, we talk about the narrative, Jim. Both guys transferred to different schools, right? But it seems to me in the media, the Bo Nix narrative is getting talked about more, right? Like, think about Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels had to play with Herm Edwards, for Christ's
Exactly.
sakes.
If Jayden Daniels would have stayed at Arizona State, Bo Nix would have stayed at Auburn. Maybe it'd be Jayden Daniels leading, and Bo Nix would be the underdog going to the weekend. I don't know. I don't think either one of those teams would be any good, no matter they stayed there. And Bo Nix, enjoy this, pal, because when you get into the NFL, you're going to go to the road of Will Levis and become mediocre, and then soon, like Will Levis, we won't even talk about him anymore in a year or two. That'll be the same with Bo Nix. That's my prediction. We'll see if I'm right or not. Not bitter or anything. I'm just saying that's what I predict. All right, let's get to the conference title games this weekend. I have both of these college games in my big bucks picks, so I'm not going to necessarily give you a prediction. And interestingly enough, I say this, I've only picked one college game before this week in my big bucks all year long, so I'm going out of my lane. So we'll see if I'm right or not. But man, these two games are both big ones. I'm glad they're on different days. Now I'm going to be on the road tomorrow night, so I'll probably miss most of the Oregon-Washington game, but it should be a fun one. I know Oregon's a 9.5-point favorite. You and I don't think either one of us understand this spread all that much.
No. So, Jim, just so you know, I bet before they played Washington, I bet Oregon to win the Pac-12 at plus like 210, thinking that they would probably lose at Washington, right? And then have a chance with the schedule that they had. I thought they'd have a chance for a rematch, which has happened. I watched the Washington game. I thought Oregon was the better team. And I thought to myself, when they play again, man, I'm going to hammer Oregon. But I thought the spread was going to be like 5. Now the spread is so crazy. Like, we always talk about numbers. I kind of want to bet Washington. Like that's how crazy this line is to me. I just 9.5.
It is crazy.
I understand the odds makers. Listen, the odds, if you go by the odds makers, they're going to tell you that the 3 best teams in football for sure are Georgia, Michigan, and Oregon. If you look at how they make game lines, that's in their power rankings. If they would show them to us, I guarantee you those are the top 3 teams. But still, how far back can Washington be to be 9.5 on a neutral field? It's crazy.
It's recency bias is what it is. And look, I'll tell you this. I'm not trying to brag or anything, but if you gave me 20 games, I'm going to probably be within a point on 18 of those games when I'm guessing the spread.
Me too.
And I'm with you. I would have said 6, maybe 6.5, but for 9.5, they are just basically just pounding. They don't want people to bet on Oregon. This just tells me that Vegas, they just don't want people to bet on Oregon. So, I mean, I don't know what it is. You can't inflate it that much, though. There's got to be value on the Huskies.
Yeah, and you can talk about, well, geez, if you were going to bet them at 5, what's the difference? Here's the difference. It's Thursday night. I bet a college basketball game that opened 3.5. I would take it up to -5. I woke up this morning at 7.5. Wow. I wouldn't bet the game at 7.5.
Right.
I got 4 points. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big difference. So I would have bet Oregon maybe at 5 or 6, but at close to 10, I'm not going to listen. Washington's a good football team. I know they struggled a little bit early, but Jesus, they got a Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback. Right. This is a real football team. in all honesty, Jim, I have a play in this game in my big bucks, but in terms of the side, I'm so fascinated by it. I'm just going to watch it and see what happens.
Yeah, and this over-under actually has been dropping a little bit. It was 66 this morning, it's down to 65. So the Sharps are betting on the under, and this line is leaned. It's actually about 9 3/4. So this lean towards Oregon.
It's amazing.
They won't move it to 10 though. They don't want you to
No.
bet on Oregon that much. So it's an interesting spread. Again, we'll talk about more of this in big bucks. I know I have it, and I think a couple of us have forms or fashions of it, and we'll be talking more about this in just about 10 minutes. All right, Green Bay. Jeez, wow, I'm getting old. Georgia and Alabama in the SEC championship game on Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. UGA is a 5.5-point favorite. This line was as high as 6.5. It's kind of dropped. People betting on Bama, not in droves, I guess, but definitely more money coming in on Alabama. Is it just because it's Alabama, or do we think that that maybe Alabama's played that much better? They didn't play very well last week.
Yeah, well, listen, Saban's an underdog once a decade. So when Alabama, it's like when Brady was an underdog, and people are going to bet that one blindly, right? So I get it. Here's my problem. You mentioned this last week, Jim. I think Nick Saban has done an incredible coaching job this year. I think he has an okay quarterback who I thought Auburn did a good job most of the time against him. For some reason, they didn't know he was going to run on third downs, and then they sent a 2-man rush on 4th and 31 that I still don't understand. But Georgia's athletes on defense, I think, are going to be way too much for Alabama, because I don't think Milroe is going to be able to get those big runs against Georgia, and they're going to say, listen, beat us with your arm. I agree with what you said in pre-production. You're probably going to say it in a couple minutes here, but Georgia knows when they need to play football, and they're going to be ready on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to save my analysis for big bucks, but I will tell you this. There are 3 teams that Georgia's really whooped up on this year, and it's 3 teams. They probably had a lot of hype talk, probably a lot of talk in the locker room about whooping up on those 3 teams. They could turn it on when they want to. We'll see if they do again this week. Any other games that intrigue you? Uncle Big Nick, who's having some family issues, couldn't come on to Attitude this morning. He says he likes Texas at -15. They got something to prove. I kind of like the Longhorns as well. I wish that spread was 14. We don't have it on the screen, but they are 15-point favorites over Oklahoma State. There was a lot of controversy about who the Big 12, the second Big 12 team should be in that championship game. Maybe Texas is getting a little bit of a break here playing the Cowboys. I don't think they're going to have much of a trouble with them.
Yeah, I was rooting for BYU personally last week just so we could see Texas, Oklahoma again. I thought that would have been a much better game.
I agree.
Again, Mike Gundy, hats off. That's a heck of a coaching job. They didn't have many people coming back. They had people transferring out of the program to get to this point. Say what you don't. A lot of people don't like the guy. That's fine. But that's a heck of a coaching job to get Oklahoma State to where they got him to. It's over. I think Texas knows they're a little bit on the outside looking in, depending on what your opinion is, but Florida State's unbeaten. So I think they know. They didn't give Texas Tech any breaks last week, right? I think they're going to roll it up. I think Texas wins big.
We're going to make our predictions on all 4 of us are going to make our predictions on who the final 4 are going to be in the playoffs before we go off the air today. And one thing you said hats off to Mike Gundy. I think that dude should leave his hat on, actually.
Oh, yeah.
With that mullet. I mean, dude, leave the hat on. I don't need to see your hair. Either that or get a haircut. Something. I don't know what's going on.
And one quick thing, though, Jim, about the Georgia game, like you said, keep in mind that Bowers didn't play last week. And most people think that they were saving him for Saturday. So, again, that goes back to the theory, well, we can kind of roll out of bed and beat Georgia Tech, right? We need our big tight end for Nick Saban. And so I think you're going to get, like you said, they're gonna be ready to go with all their players healthy, not healthy, but they're playing.
Before we bring in the rest of the crew, Niners and Eagles real quickly on Sunday. That is the marquee game of the week. And I think any other week besides this one, we'd probably be spending a whole segment on a game like this because it was the NFC Championship game last year. I think there's at least a 50-50 chance it's the NFC Championship game again this year. We keep saying this is a bad spot for the Eagles. This is a bad spot for the Eagles. But yeah, they keep winning. They beat Dallas. They beat Buffalo, found a way to beat Buffalo. They got Dallas again next week, which is why I think it's a bad spot for them. San Francisco's beating everybody again. But, I mean, this is a really tough game to handicap.
It is, and the Eagles, who are in the midst of the toughest schedule, I think, in the history of the NFL, Chiefs, Bills, Niners, Cowboys. That is, and I like the people who tell me the Eagles are lucky. Lucky, they beat the Dolphins, they beat the Bills, they beat the Chiefs, they beat the Cowboys. Who else can say that?
That's right.
The one thing that can, first of all, this is the anti-Aunt Mabel game. Every pro bettor on earth is bringing bags of money to bet the 49ers, right?
Yeah.
We know that. The only thing that concerns me is this, and I mentioned this to my son a couple of times. He's an Eagles fan. Jalen Hurts is not healthy. And when he runs, which if you watch him, when he has to turn on the gas, when he has to go in that extra gear, he has this wince on his face when he's done. So that knee is definitely not 100%. Now, can the Niners defense take advantage of it? I don't think he's going to run a lot. I think he's going to have to beat him with their arm. I'll say this. I understand the bad spot. They played a couple tough games. The Niners are 3-point favorites in Philly. This seems like an even game to me. I think if they play it this week,
it's even. To 3.5 too.
Yeah, and I think if they play it in the NFC Championship game, it's even. I'm going to just watch the game and enjoy it.
I will say this. Jalen Hurts needs to stay healthy enough to play for 4 more weeks because I have no chance to win my fantasy championship for a third straight year. For a third straight year if he doesn't stay healthy.
We're guaranteed. We start the week off, Jim, with 12 points because of the 2 times he's going to get in on the brotherly shove there.
And in my league, rushing touchdowns from a quarterback are worth way more than in most leagues. So you only get 3 points for a pass touchdown in my league. You get 6 points for a rushing touchdown. So he and McCaffrey are I'm doomed without either one of them. So they both need to stay healthy here. Look, I will say this about this game and a handicap. The reason why this game's not in my big bucks is because I'm on the same side as Mabel. You joke about Mabel. Everybody's betting on San Francisco. And I can't pick for Philly here. I just can't. I think San Francisco's the far better team. I'm not saying they're going to win by double digits, but I think they have a lot. They also have a lot to prove and get off the back after all the Brock Purdy thing, him getting hurt in the championship game last year. They got something to prove. I think they're going to prove it. So I like San Francisco. I don't know if I'm going to bet on it or not, but I certainly don't want to put it in any kind of best bet or anything because the public's all over it, and I hate when I'm on the same side of the public. Let's bring in our friends as we get to that time of the week, boys and girls. It's the witching hour. It's time for me to put on the hat. Oh,
gobble, gobble.
Gobble. Giblets Derry is here. You know, Spencer had it the week of Thanksgiving. And, I guess I was jealous because I didn't get to wear I did wear it, actually. I wear it, award for the family, but, I didn't get to wear it for everybody else. But I didn't have an awful week for my best bets. I went 2-3, and none of us really did bad. But the worst part about it, Thomas, we're all in red now. Yeah. Everyone's in red. It's bad.
And I said to you guys that the fact that I'm in second place, geez, I've had a terrible year. So
it's not that bad because you're only $15 behind even, so it's not that bad.
We gotta ramp this up over the next month.
All right, here we go. We go as we always do. We go from worst to first from the week before, and you see all the red on this screen. We're gonna make it as green as possible this week and try to make you some money. I gotta say this. I changed some things up. I went back to the formula of picking the ones I like most that are also against Mabel. We're going to win this week. I like it. All right, here we go. I'm starting right off the bat. I'm diving right in the fray. The New Orleans Saints. I didn't have the cojones, I guess is the right word, to pick them on the money line, although I think the Saints win. And I got an email this morning, 11 minutes after my NFL picks were released, from someone who asked me if I was drunk for picking the Saints. I think the Saints have a good week this week. We talked about it, Thomas. They either play well this week or they just fall straight into the hole and we never see them again. There they are down there. No, they're up here. Look up here. There they are. There they are.
You mentioned that story a couple of times, but you've never answered the question, were you?
Oh, was I drunk?
Yeah.
No, I thought about it though. The guy was making me feel bad, so I thought about getting a drink, but I didn't. I'll save it for tonight, I guess. My wife's out of town, and I got the kids with the tonsils by themselves, so maybe I'll have a drink tonight. We'll see. All right. Anyway, I do like the Saints this week. I think they play one of their best games of the year. Their backs up to the wall against the wall. They're going to have the us against the world mentality. I think they cover this 4 points at home. They can't wait to get home. Playing a 3-game home stretch. I think it's going to be an exciting one. Maybe Saints fans will jump on the bandwagon. Maybe I won't go that far, but I like the Saints this week. I don't think the Lions have been playing well either. I think it's a high-scoring game as well. I predicted, I think, 30-27 in my picks. Could be the highest-scoring game of the year for the Saints. We'll see. All right, I like a money line parlay. Basically even money. Pittsburgh over the Arizona Cardinals. I know a lot of people are taking the Steelers over the Cardinals in knockout. Do you like that, Thomas? You did your knockout column this week.
Yeah, I almost made that my contrarian play. I just the Kenny Pickett always scares me a little bit, but I think the Steelers defense has enough to get it done against Arizona.
All right, and I think that KC could be looking ahead to Buffalo, which is why I didn't like them with giving up the 6 points. But I do like them to win. I know they're on the road at Lambeau, but I'm not sold on Jordan Love. And this KC defense is for real. I think they're going to stuff Jordan Love. I like the under in this game, and I like Kansas City. There's my money line parlay. We talked about the 2 college games. Washington getting 9.5. It's that spread. It's the value. I don't know if the Huskies are going to win the game, but I do think they're going to make it close. I don't think Oregon's nearly – now, look, they were really good last week against Oregon State. I just don't think they're as good as everybody thinks they are. We're going to find out this week because I do think that Michael Penix on the way out the door is going to have one last little thing going on for him. He didn't play very well last week. He's going to go out strong. And in Georgia, I just think, look, when Kirby Smart wants to turn it on, he's not the same coach he was a couple of years ago when people feared playing Alabama. I think Alabama now fears playing Georgia a little bit. I really do. Saban doesn't, but I think the players do a little bit. And I just think Milroe is going to really struggle in this game. And then finally, my teaser, Jets -8 over Atlanta. Chargers just got to beat New England. New England's a hot mess. And I really starting to think that Bill Belichick isn't going anywhere. And I think he's maybe losing on purpose. I know that sounds weird, but when he missed that kick last week, he kind of smirked. It gave something away. It was really weird vibe. So anyway, I don't think the Patriots, they might not win again the rest of this year. All right, moving on to the guru who thinks the opposite of me there.
Yeah, for sure. I'll start off with that. I got Patriots money line because I know they've been bad, but boy, have the Chargers been bad lately. My goodness. I'm just starting to think that Justin Herbert's just going to, not that he's going to intentionally give up, but when you just keep getting beat down like that, there's only so much you can do. So I think they take the L this week. Brandon Staley's a clown show, and they've got a lot of injuries. So I'm out on the Chargers. Give me the Patriots. I feel like that's a value there at plus 205. And also like the under in Falcons Jets. I think that's going to be ugly with Timmy Boyle versus Desmond Ridder. That's just, I don't see more than, maybe I could take under 24 in that. I think that's going to be very ugly. So like that play. Then I got the 49ers, got them at -3 because I was just doing the analysis and I couldn't help but pick them. I feel like the Eagles, their reckoning's coming. This is the week they pay the piper. It's got to happen at some point. They can't keep beating these good teams week after week by the skin of their teeth. So I'll take the Niners with laying the points. And I like Oregon this week. That's one that me and Jim are on opposite sides of. I just don't like what I'm seeing right now from Michael Penix and the Huskies. I feel like they're just trending down at the worst time. I know you had mentioned, Thomas, about playing your best football heading into December. And I know it's a little different in college, but I mean, the Huskies, they're just not playing good right now. And so I'll take the recent trend of Oregon playing really well. They're better on both sides of the ball, so I'll lay the points there. And in my teaser play of the week, Denver plus 9.5. I don't know if they'll beat Houston, but they've been playing so well to where I think they'll keep that thing close. Sean Payton's really got them playing good. And in the Jags, -2.5 over the Bengals. I think T-Law and company can win by at least a field goal over freaking Jake Browning.
In about 4 minutes, you'll see why I'm scared of Denver in a teaser. Just about 4 minutes. We'll talk about it. Gabe, you're up.
I don't like hearing that because I've got Denver in a teaser. I don't think the Texans are 10 points better than the Broncos. I considered taking the under in this game, which I ended up doing in another teaser later on. But to finish off that teaser, if you give me Patrick Mahomes to win against Jordan Love, I'll take that every day. So I take him at a pick 'em in that teaser to finish that out. Denver Houston under, I discussed it last week when the Texans played the Jaguars. I don't know where the blind confidence in this offense is coming from. I love CJ Stroud. The Texans are banged up on offense. Tank Dell questionable, Robert Woods questionable, a few of those guys, and offensive line issues. I don't think that these teams will combine for 53 points. I think Sean Payton will find a way to limit this Texans offense, and I don't necessarily trust Russ to light up the scoreboard either. And as Spencer just previewed, Boyle against Ritter, they're not. I teased it up to 40. I would have taken it under that as well. They're not combining for 40 points. Two teams who will combine for points, though, I think are Alabama and Georgia. I'm not touching the spread as some of you guys are. I just, on principle, I can't pick against Nick Saban. I'm not going to do it when he's got time to prepare. But I think, Georgia, as you mentioned earlier, Jim, there's a few teams that this year they've really gotten up out of bed for, and they put up points in those games. They put half 100 on Kentucky. Alabama's no Kentucky, but if you're telling me that these teams only have to combine for 55 points to hit the over, I'm taking it every time. I don't think these two defenses are all that fantastic, although they show up when they need to. And let's be honest, there are not two quarterbacks in the country who have improved more throughout the course of the season, more than Milroe and Beck. I'm not saying they'll exactly light it up, but I think they'll combine for the over. I like Tulane to cover the spread against SMU. I don't understand 3.5 against a guy who's got 46 or 48 career passes. I think these two defenses are really good. I also like the under in this game. It's not on my board. But, if you give me Tulane to win at home by 3.5 points against a backup, I'll take it every day. And then this is the week, guys. This is the week that an Iowa over hits. And I don't think it's got anything to do with the Hawkeyes. I think Michigan, even though they don't even have to, I think they're going to run all over Iowa. I think they're going to make a statement. They're still pissed off. And I think they're going to do most of the legwork here by themselves. I think they could even score 35 by themselves if they wanted. But this is the week the Iowa over hits with Michigan doing most of the legwork.
I almost took the Iowa team total under 6.5.
Yeah.
I don't see Iowa scoring at all. I just don't. I think I don't really like the over overall, because I think that actually the Michigan defense doesn't get enough praise for, I think, how good they are. And I think that's one of the things that's interesting factor. I got one question for you, Gabe, before we move on to the champ of the week. And the Denver Houston under, looking at that, and I have Denver Houston under as one of my best bets in my NFL column. Didn't put it on my card here. There was too much Denver play here on the card, and I didn't play it. But what do you think about maybe what do we think about an under in the second half? Seems like the Texans over the last few weeks, they've started out strong, but they've really faded in the second half for some unknown reason. I don't know if their teams are figuring out Stroud or making adjustments on Stroud, but the past couple of weeks, I don't know what's going on. Texas can't score in the second half.
Yeah, I wouldn't even necessarily say the second half. I would just say in the third quarter. I don't know what the reasoning is. Obviously, I'm not in that locker room. Slowick's kind of changed up the play calling in the third quarter, it seems. He's tried to get a little too cute with it, third and short, passing the ball deep. But yeah, no, you're completely right. I think the second half under is definitely a good play just because of how poor Houston has come out of the locker room at halftime.
All right. Speaking of, we talked about the abyss earlier. Well, guess who brought himself all the way out of the abyss? That's Tom Casale. He was like, I don't know. I think he had like $4 left or something. And he just kept doubling up. He's had quite a few good weeks here. Back within $7 of surpassing me. What you got this week?
Well, I don't have the guts to take an Iowa over like Gabe. I already got like 9 ulcers from betting for 30 years. I can't afford a 10. So good luck watching that one. But I do have Denver in the tees with everybody else. I got Denver plus 9.5, Eagles plus 9. I think whoever wins that game, it's going to be within 10 points. And then I took Tennessee at home plus 7. I actually kind of like them on the spread all by itself. But if you're not running to your phone to bet the Houston Texans on Sunday, then I don't know what to tell you, because the Broncos have no chance of keeping that game within 10 points. If history
I
is
left
any
it off my
indicator.
card.
Yeah. I went with Gabe. I took Tulane. I think it's going to be a good game, but I think new quarterback, it's going to be too much Tulane defense, and I think they win by a touchdown or more. Boise State -2.5 over UNLV. Boise State's really been playing well since they fired their coach who stunk, and now they got a young guy in there. They really want to get him the job. I just like the way they match up with UNLV. Took a couple player props. Bucky Irving over 91.5 yards. Listen, he went for 127 in the first game. Everyone talking about Bo Nix. They rushed for over 200 yards in that game. I think that's going to be the story of the game is the Oregon running game. And then my favorite play of the week is Talon Green, the Boise State quarterback, over 29.5 rushing yards. Last year, I took his over similar to this in the Mountain West Championship game and the bowl game. He doesn't run a ton. He's a good runner, but he runs more in big games. So I think we get this by halftime. Talon Green over 29.5 rushing yards.
The one advantage I have of putting together these graphics is seeing everyone. And I was torn. Between putting the Denver under and my money line parlay on this card. And when I saw that everyone was touching Denver in some form or fashion, I'm staying away from Denver. Not doing it. Anytime all four of us touch something,
and we don't know who's picking what. So this is pure
exactly.
Thomas, you got a question for me. You said I was brave for betting Iowa, Michigan over. I got to tip my hat to you. You're a little brave here. You're picking Boise State to cover the spread against statistically the best team against the spread in all of the country.
Yeah. UNLV is on a roll.
Yeah, no, the both teams been playing well. I just, I like Boise in this spot. I like the way their defense has played the last couple of weeks. So we'll see what happens. Listen, you guys, you better. This is it for me because now we're losing college football, and now I'm gonna have to go all NFL after this. So I got to get all my college games in now.
Here's a little tidbit for you. You're picking against UNLV. If UNLV wins this game, they'll be that 10th victory of the year. They haven't won 10 games in a season since I was in high school. 1984 is the last time that UNLV won 10 games in a season. So
Barry Odom is still there next year. It's remarkable.
Oh, yeah, he's got to go somewhere else. I mean, what he's done with that program in just a year is amazing. So very impressed by the run and Rebs. But I don't know. Can they do it against Boise State? We'll find out. All right. Before we go off the air, we're going to go one by one. You got 30 seconds to a minute each. Give me your final four. Well, we got a comment first. Let's see what it is. Hell, Ray says, you got to love the NIL money. I guess you do. You definitely do.
Coach Prime, everyone thought Coach Prime would do good because of that, and they stunk.
Well, they started off hot. Didn't exactly work that way. All right. Give me your final four. Who are the four teams in the college playoff as we go on the screen, as I look at them from right to left? Spencer the Guru, you go first.
All right. Well, Michigan's locked in, so that's one. Georgia, I think, beats Bama, so I'll go with Georgia. Oregon, I think, wins. They're in my big buck, so that's three. And then for my fourth, I'm going to go a little contrarian here. Florida State's currently favored to be the fourth, but I'm going to say they get upset by Louisville, and I'm going to go with Texas getting that fourth spot.
Gabe?
I've got three of the same as Spencer. I've got Georgia, I've got Michigan, I've got Oregon. I'm going to disagree. I think Texas gets left out in favor of Florida State. The committee has really set a precedent here. They've put Oregon 2 spots in front of Texas. Texas has got the more impressive resume, but they've really got no chance to up that unless they win by 100 points this weekend. Oregon plays Washington. I think they're going to win that game, albeit close, and that's just too big of a gap to overcome for Texas. So give me Florida State with that last spot and Oregon getting in over the Longhorns.
Tom?
Yeah, I think for me, I think all the favorites win this week. I like Michigan. I like Georgia. I like Oregon. And then I think FSU slides into that final spot. The only thing I'll say is if Alabama wins, watch out. I want to see the committee tell me to my face that they're not going to put the SEC champion in. And as Jim correctly pointed out last week, the committee doesn't care that Texas beat Alabama. They don't make decisions that way. They just don't, right or wrong. So that to me is going to be the fun part. If Alabama wins, we got anarchy.
We do. We have chaos. And normally I'm rooting for chaos, but not this year. I don't want to see it because I don't want to see Florida State get hosed. because if Alabama wins, I think Florida State's the one that gets hosed in that deal. And they don't deserve to be hosed. They really don't. I mean, Florida State's going to beat Louisville. And the reason why is not so much because they're that much better than Louisville without their quarterback, but I think that they are going to rally. They've been rallying around this whole thing. I think you saw it in the second half last week against Florida. They easily could have kind of gone into a tank there. They were losing in that game, and they came on and they finished strong, and I think they're going to come out strong on Saturday and win the game. I don't think it's as easy as everyone says that it's going to be. There's going to be a mix-up in there. So with that being said, my final four are Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, and I'm picking the upset. I think Michael Penix has got something to prove. I don't think Oregon is as good as everybody thinks they are. And Washington's going to make it super, super easy on this committee because if they win, there's no thinking. If those are the four teams that win, it's super easy. And I think those are the four teams that win. So we'll see how it goes when we come back on Monday. Spencer and I will be talking about it. And, one of us will be eating crow. One of us will be saying, I told you so. I don't know. Maybe I'll make
horns.
Maybe I'll make Spencer wear the turkey hat on Monday.
I mean, I went out on a limb with Texas, so it's like, I'll agree to this. If they lose to Oklahoma State, I'll wear the turkey hat.
Well, El Ray's rooting for Louisville because he went to Florida, so that's not really fair. So we're gonna give him a little love here, but he's just rooting.
Let me say, despite everything in the back here, all this LSU merch you see, I'm rooting for Bama this week. I'm rooting for chaos because I got him at 6-1 going into the season. So I've got a future on Alabama, and that's my last hope.
At least you got a good reason. What if everybody just everybody loses? That would be kind of fun too.
What if Michigan loses?
That would be hilarious. If Michigan lost, would they leave them out, Tom, if Michigan lost?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
If you lose to Iowa, the worst offense on the planet.
That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, Ohio State gets back in the conversation. It's all craziness. If Alabama wins and Michigan loses, for once, I don't want to be in the committee. I would want to be on the committee.
We'll put Tulane in. Next year we might be talking about Tulane getting in. Who knows when we get to 12?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Tulane getting in. All right, well, we've had a lot of fun here. This has been a jam-packed show. I will dare to say this might be our best show of the football season. I think it was that good. That's how good I think it was. So we'll be back on Monday. I'll be back Datitude tomorrow morning talking a lot more. We've kind of overlooked the Saints a little bit because I know that people have had kind of Saints overload. They watched us a whole bunch on Monday and Tuesday. They wanted a break from the Saints. I think we'll be back tomorrow previewing Saints Lions with Larry Holder tomorrow morning and probably talking a lot about 49ers and Eagles. That'll be on Datitude tomorrow at 10 a.m. And then Spencer and I will be back Monday at 4 p.m. on all these same channels on Bayou Bets. Don't forget to subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. You can always know when we're going live. I don't need to tell you because it will tell you. And we thank Caesars Sportsbook for being the official odds partner of bet.NOLA.com. Get all the football and get a lot of sleep tonight because you got a lot of football to watch over the course of the next 3.5 days. We'll be here to talk about it on Monday. Everyone enjoy your weekend. Take care. Peace and love, everybody.